He's the commissioner of the NBA, Adam Silver. How are you, Adam?
Hey, Rich, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming on. Are you ecstatic of all this news, all the drama that's being played out, and all these rosters and free agency and front offices across the NBA?
I love the interest. I'm not ecstatic about the drama. I mean, I feel bad for what's ever going on in Cleveland, and I have no firsthand information, but I assume where there's smoke, there's fire, and Brian Windhorst has been cataloging LeBron's career for a long time, and he usually has very accurate insights from that team. So it's upsetting to hear that when you see superstar players who have coexisted, who've had so much success together, obviously 3 finals in a row, one championship, to hear that for whatever reason there's a sense that they can't continue to coexist. I mean, yeah, that's drama, but it's not necessarily the kind of drama that the league wants.
Well, I guess look on the bright side, Commissioner, neither of them are going to join the Warriors, right? Right.
You never know.
That's right. Although that said, it does seem that a lot of this activity has been undertaken by a bunch of teams that, seeing what the Warriors did, need to. Daryl Morey called it an arms race, is what he called it right now. Do you think that even though the super team mentality that I know that you and some others lamented on occasion last year has brought this into being?
Well, yes, and that's the positive side of it, which is, as I said during the finals, we should be celebrating excellence. And we have some of the greatest athletes in the world in our league, some of the greatest competitors in the league, and some of the greatest team presidents and owners, and none of them want to stand still. And so the reaction to the Warriors was never going to be, well, let's just stand back and watch them win year after year. We're going to retool. And how is it we can compete against them? And maybe even how can we emulate some of the things they've done? I mean, I have to say, I accept the term super team in a certain context, but at least historically, super teams were not teams that were built through the draft. And if you look at the Warriors, yes, of course, they added an incredible free agent in Durant, and he's more than a footnote or an asterisk. But you begin with the 7th pick in Steph, the 11th pick in Clay, the 35th pick in Draymond Green, bringing Andre Iguodala onto the team, Steve Kerr, incredible management of that team. So I just feel like that's what should be emulated by other teams in this league, by drafting well, building teams with incredible cultures. Look no further than Cleveland. It's not just a function of aggregating great players. Then you got to get those players to want to be on the same page, to sacrifice for each other, and to be able to coexist over a long period of time. And if you look back at the history of this league, there have been many attempts to put together great players that have broken up on their own just because those great players weren't able to coexist.
NBA Commissioner Adam Silver joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. To what do you and your colleagues in the front office attribute the burst in ratings and popularity of the Summer League that we just saw?
To me, it was an extension of the enormous interest coming off of our season, and plus what appears to be a really exciting draft pick. And because the Las Vegas market is so close to Los Angeles, you've always had a lot of Lakers and Clippers fans out in that part of the country. And I think the fact that there's been so much interest in the entire Ball family, but of course in Lonzo in particular. And on top of that, he had a great summer league. He was our MVP of the summer league, and you had a lot of Laker fans there as well. But at the same time, we've seen growth virtually every year in the Summer League. We've had better coverage. As part of our new television deal with ESPN, we had something like 46 games on one ESPN outlet or another, and then the rest of the games were on NBA TV, plus you could get them on various apps and through other digital media. So I think the exposure as well made a big difference. And I think Las Vegas, since we started playing our Summer League there 15 years ago or so, has become much more of a destination for Major League sports. I joked when I was out there with Carolyn Goodman, the mayor of Las Vegas, that the NBA should be getting a commission, because she said, when are you bringing a team? I said, bringing a team. I said, since we started our summer league and held an all-star game in Vegas, you now have the NFL coming to town and the NHL coming to town. And it really is my feeling that we own the first 2 weeks of July on the sports calendar in Las Vegas. We're very much a fixture in the community. And on top of that, because there's so much interest in our summer league, we use it to have an owners meeting. So I had all the owners in town at the Wynn Hotel, where we had meetings, and then we brought in all our team executives, sort of our equivalent of baseball winter meetings take place in Las Vegas in the summer. We had 1,500 team executives there for 4 days of meetings as well. So we're a big part of Las Vegas in the summer, and I think that generates even additional interest in our summer league.
Well, in terms of that, I'd like to revisit what you may have discussed with your owners and the Board of Governors in those meetings recently in a couple minutes. But while we were on the subject of Vegas, I know you've been vocal. You've written an op-ed piece in the New York Times called Legalize and Regulate Sports Betting. You were on a panel at the Paley Center in New York City recently with commissioners of the 3 other major North American sports, including my boss in the NFL. And you are just, you're putting it out there, Commissioner, like, hey, people are gambling. We might as well just realize that, regulate it. How can the NBA embrace sports betting and make sure that it doesn't metastasize into the final product in the same way that we all know that the referee Tim Donaghy did, Commissioner?
Well, let me begin by saying both. There's an enormous legal sports betting industry right now based outside of the United States, where we are a fairly popular sport in Europe and certainly in Asia, and people in those markets can legally bet on the NBA right now, and we get access to the data. We know if there's aberrational behavior. We know if that there's unpredictable interest or action on particular games, and we can then investigate to try to avoid the Tim Donaghy type situation you referenced, which is where we had a referee who never demonstrated that he was altering the outcome of games, but was clearly betting on games that he and other officials were involved in. I would then say, in terms of the United States, number one reason for having more transparency is precisely to detect aberrant behavior. When you have a transparent market like the New York Stock Exchange, if there's insider trading, for example, all kinds of flags go off in the stock exchange computers because they have highly sophisticated algorithms knowing that there's an unusual trading pattern. And so, therefore, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's insider trading, but it gives them reason to investigate. And if you talk to the European soccer clubs right now, that's the same thing they do with all the betting exchanges. If there's any odd behavior, then they investigate, and often, they either find there's a problem or not. Right now, back to the United States, it's been estimated that it's up to a $400 billion illegal industry of sports betting in the U.S. alone. Right now, there's almost no transparency because it's all illegal. And so in order to catch someone who's doing something illegally, back to that Tim Donaghy case, he was caught up in a sting, an investigation in a completely unrelated case, but his voice appeared on a wiretap, and that's how ultimately the FBI caught him, because there's no other means of tracking how someone's betting on a sporting event. And it's our feeling here that it's going on already on a widespread basis. Let's make it transparent. Let's regulate it. And we get it. What comes with regulation is government oversight that currently exists both on a federal and state level, in the same way that there's oversight of casinos now. And by the way, I want to be clear. I recognize there's a possibility that you could have, deviants who bet over their head and get caught up in an addictive way in gambling. And I think that's one of the things that through a transparent system you can monitor for, because people have to identify themselves. Almost all that betting comes through credit cards. Once again, you can see if there's unusual behavior, and you can also put in place programs to deal with problem gamblers as well. So I would just say that it's not a perfect solution, but I think by regulating this kind of activity, you have a lot better chance of dealing with problems than just allowing it to exist underground in an explosive way, the way we do now.
And when you posited this theory at the Paley Center, did Commissioner Goodell afterwards take you aside and say, what are you talking about, Adam? Or is there something that you think might be a there with other leagues?
Well, I would say I would never speak for Commissioner Goodell. I'm sure he's a very smart guy. He's aware of the amount of interest in his sport based on sports betting. He sees both the legal action, of course, that now takes place in Las Vegas, and I'm sure he has privy to the same studies that I do on the amount of illegal betting. And I know it's something that he's told me in the past that the league is continuing to study, but he certainly, his position right now is to be against it. So, again, I won't speak for him. I will say that Rob Manfred, the commissioner of Major League Baseball, while he hasn't come out and said he's necessarily in favor of legalized sports betting yet, or I don't think he has, I know he's found a position on the spectrum sort of closer to me than where Roger is right now, which is I think he's recognizing that it may be time for a change in the law. And it's something that he and I have had many discussions about. I know there are other people in his organization have continued to look at it. And I think my sense from Rob Manfred is that, he's more open to looking at what a legalized betting structure would look like in the U.S.
A couple of more minutes with the commissioner of the NBA, Adam Silver, here on the Rich Eisen Show. The conversations you've had with owners, board of governors, over the issue of star players resting, just flat out not suiting up just to make sure that they get some rest during the regular season. Certainly on the road when they make their one city appearance for the year. LeBron James, for Clipper fans out here in Los Angeles, for them to show up and see him in warm-ups was particularly hurtful. Where are you on this subject with owners and coaches and making sure this doesn't happen for fans across the country, Commissioner?
Where we are, Rich, you never used to call me Commissioner. Let's go back to, I can just be Adam.
Okay, I don't know. I mean, okay, Adam.
Like I said, when you get the serious question, it comes Commissioner. but
I
anyway,
don't know. I'm just, I'm paying respects, man. I've known you for a long time, but,
All right, Mr. Eisen. So that where our owners are is we all agree that, first of all, the way you described it in the question, it makes it seem like guys just want to rest. What's really happening is this is team-directed resting. This is, where taking advantage of modern science and technology, they're carefully tracking how much these players sleep, the amount of movement on the floor, how tired they are, oxygen level of their blood and all that stuff. And they're making decisions to try to avoid injury so the players can stay healthy longer into the season, be available for playoffs and finals, et cetera. So I never want to leave somebody with the sense that players, sometimes I hear this notion from players from the old days, we were just tougher. And
oh, yeah.
This is player,
I've heard it.
If you're in the locker room, the players want to play. There aren't players raising their hands saying, I'd rather just sit on the bench and watch, my teammates run up and down the floor. That's not the case at all. This is very tactical. It's very strategic. But having said that, because it is tactical and strategic, what we've gone back and said to our owners and our GMs and our coaches is we recognize a certain amount of rest is appropriate. But to the extent you're going to rest players, number one, whenever possible, rest them at home to avoid the precise issue you just raised, the one time that the Eastern Conference team is in L.A., where those fans have that one chance to see that player. And then the other thing we've said is, to the extent possible, avoid resting multiple starters at the same time, especially during, marquee national television games.
And what did the owners say to that? What did the owners say?
And the owners said, we agree. And by the way, and the coaches said, we agree, and the GM said, we agree. Now, in practice, I know there are going to be times when it's as you know from being around this league a long time, from being around the NFL for a long time, players are constantly banged up. And the one thing I'm trying to avoid is getting into a position where our teams where it's league doctor's note versus team doctor's note, that, I think at the end there's got to be a certain amount of good faith here as to when a player is genuinely injured or when a player is being rested for tactical purposes. Because players, as you know, just walk in a locker room after one of our games, they're sitting in ice buckets. Every portion of their body has either a heat pad or an ice pad on them. So it's, again, these guys, they're tough guys. It's just really a question of how can we keep them healthy longer throughout the season.
Okay. So do I, Adam, Commissioner Sylvie Silv? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That's a little bit too. That's a little too informal. Last one, have you had a conversation with LeVar Ball? You ever have a one-on-one chat with him?
We said hello to each other
That's
at
it?
the draft. I wouldn't say it was a full-out conversation. I mean, but there was a luncheon with the players and their families, and we spoke for a few minutes. I mean, I just congratulated him on the fact that his son was about to be a top pick in the draft, and all the things that they've accomplished. Seemed like a very nice man.
Okay, because you're a big baller in your own right in that regard.
Man, I've gone from commissioner to being a
See,
big
now I'm
baller.
going the other way. I got to modulate. I've got to modulate. My wife, Susie, wanted me to say hello. So right. I will
See,
do
now,
that.
Now all the listeners know we have this personal relationship.
Yes, we
it's
do.
like Susie says hi, Commissioner.
I love chatting with you. Take care. We'll chat soon.
Okay.
You got it. Thanks for joining. That's Adam Silver.
The Rich Eisen Show. Weekdays at noon Eastern on radio stations across the country and audience.
If you like that, download our app. Please, just if it's a memory thing, just delete other apps. You don't need those apps. This app, the Rich Eisen Show app, you need that.